Spending hours and hours manually syncing audio is just so tedious and takes way too long. Wireless Pro, however, can fix that because it has a built-in timecode generator. We've got a video linked down below that dives into what timecode is and how it works. If you don't want to watch that though, here is the TLDR. Timecode is essentially a super accurate clock that you can embed in your video and audio files to line them up when editing, making the post-production process much faster. The Wireless Pro actually has a built-in timecode generator, which makes it super handy for syncing audio and video. I'm going to run through how to use timecode on the Wireless Pro with two different setups: a single camera that doesn't understand audio timecode and a pair of cameras that do. Alright, let's start with a single camera and dual audio setup. For this demo, I'm going to be using a Sony FX30 as my camera. With this, I'm going to be just recording the timecode as an audio signal, which can be done on any device even if it doesn't actually understand timecode. This can even work with your phone via USB. Alright, first you need to set up the Wireless Pro receiver. This is done through Rode Central, so you'll just need to connect it to your computer or to your phone. Once you do, just select the receiver, enable timecode, and open up the timecode modes menu. Choose timecode mode 1 and hit apply. This mode sends all your Wireless Pro audio to the left channel and all the timecode info to the right. Also, make sure you choose the same frame rate that you'll be shooting in and that real time is selected. On the receiver's home screen, you can actually tell timecode is enabled as one of the output meters will be orange. If you also need to, you can flick across to this screen to see the current clock and frame rate. Just connect up your Wireless Pro receiver to the FX30's mic input with the TRS cable, clip your transmitters to your talent, and it's all ready to go. Now, while timecode is an excellent way to quickly sync your footage, we still recommend recording a clap or a mark so you have a way to manually check your sync, and nudge it by a frame or two if you need to. Your timecode signal will be recorded as a series of beeps on the right audio channel of your footage, so that even if your camera is unable to recognize these beeps, DaVinci Resolve will. Once you've finished shooting, just grab all your audio and video and dump it into your editing software. I'm using DaVinci Resolve, which is honestly just a lot easier to work with timecode than other softwares. Premiere Pro and Final Cut don't actually recognize audio timecode, so you'd need to use Resolve to sync your files up to start with anyway. If you do want to use either of those programs, we do have guides for that linked below. Alright, back to the task at hand. Just select all your video clips, right-click, and select Update Timecode from Audio Track. Then select all your video and audio files, right-click, and go to Auto Sync Audio based on timecode and append. Your video is all ready then to be thrown into the timeline and cut up to your heart's content, and all those audio tracks from your onboard recordings will come with it. Whilst you're editing, just mute the scratch audio track as you may need it later to check your sync. If you want to use the scratch audio, this will only be on the left stereo channel as the right channel will be the timecode beeps, so you will need to convert it to mono before you use it. It's worth noting that there are a few factors that can affect the accuracy of your timecode, so you may need to nudge your clips by a frame or two in some cases. For more info on timecode, you can check out our video that's linked in the description. Now let's move on to a multi-camera setup. For this, we need to use a method called jam syncing, which is best used with cameras that actually understand timecode. For this, I'm going to be using two Blackmagic 6K cameras. These can interpret a timecode signal via the mic input, and from there, record the timecode into the actual metadata of your video clips. To set up your Wireless Pro receiver to jam sync, hook it up to your computer and open up Rode Central. Click on the receiver, enable timecode, and then click on timecode modes. We want to select timecode mode 5 and click apply. In this mode, your receiver will only output timecode, so you'll need to use the Wireless Pro's onboard recordings for your audio rather than the audio recorded into your camera. Again, also make sure you choose the same frame rate as your camera and that real time is selected. If you need to double check that timecode is enabled, best way is to look at these meters at the top of the Wireless Pro home screen. When timecode mode 5 is enabled, both will be orange. Also, you can flick across to this screen to show your frame rate and the current clock. Now, it's time to jam sync these guys. On your cameras, make sure that the TRS mic input is selected as the audio source, then, well, quite literally just jam the TRS cable from the Wireless Pro receiver into the first camera's mic input. The camera's timecode display will automatically change to match the code sent to it from the Wireless Pro. Once it matches, you can unplug the receiver and repeat the process for the second camera if you need to. And now, both cameras are in sync. If you have any more cameras that support timecode, you could jam sync them as well. Theoretically, there isn't a limit to how many cameras you could have in this setup. One small note for jam syncing though, whilst the Wireless Pro receivers and transmitters will always be perfectly synchronized to each other, the internal clocks of other devices can drift apart over time and gradually fall out of sync. Unfortunately, this is just a limitation with the jam sync method, so the best practice is to jam sync your equipment every few hours to avoid as much drift as possible. Once you've shot everything, it's then time to head back to your edit den to sync it all up. Alright, so we're back at the computer ready to edit. Grab any video and audio files and dump it all into your editing software. For this demo, I'm going to be using DaVinci Resolve again, which we generally recommend when dealing with timecode. If you work with Premiere Pro or Final Cut, however, we do have guides linked down below. Now, in Resolve, I'm going to drag the footage from each camera onto its own track on the timeline. Then I'm just going to add my audio recordings onto their own separate tracks, keeping all the files from each shot roughly lined up on the timeline. Now, select all the corresponding video and audio tracks from the same shot, right-click and select Auto Align Clips based on timecode. If you want, you can also create a multicam clip using timecode as your syncing method. The way you choose to manage these clips though will really depend on your workflow. The timecode just makes it a lot easier to have everything in sync. But from here, you really can just edit to your heart's content, cutting between angles to suit your needs. If you need any more info or have any issues, either take a look at our full user guide link below or throw us a comment. Alright, I'm a head out.